Alright, so this is the inverse FN2 writing equation inverses for the toolkit for page 28 for chapter 5, okay? So, inverses, if you remember inverses from chapter 5, we've been talking about them for a while now. What you should have hopefully realized, again, that is the opposite of what we're doing for an expression or an equation in some cases. So, in this case, for the example, they give you the function x cubed minus 1 here, okay? X cubed minus 1, the inverse, if we were to solve for it, would give you the notation f to the negative 1x with the cube root of x plus 1, okay? So, and it makes sense because if we think about it, we're cubing just that x, and now we're cube rooting the entire thing. And then instead of subtracting one, we're adding one. So we're doing the complete opposite of what we were doing at the beginning of that function. So, let's take a look at our first example here. So, number 1, it says find the inverse for each of the functions. So h of x is equal to 2x cubed plus 3, okay? Again, the biggest thing I can tell you is write h of x as y first, because it's a lot easier to look at that as notation, and then keep your x value there, okay? If you remember now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to switch that x and y. So in this case, that y will become x, and the x will become y. Alright? Therefore, we can undo all of our process from the original function. So we have the function x is equal to 2y cubed plus 3. Alright? And now what we're going to do is, again, just solve for y. First things first, I always start with the outside. Again, usually it's adding and subtracting. In this case, I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides. And I'm going to get x minus 3 on my left side and 2y cubed on my right. Alright, the next thing, again, usually you want to keep that cube as the last thing that you do, so therefore it is going to be able to cube root every single part. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by 2 next on it. Alright, and again, you can simplify this further by that x minus 3 by splitting up that fraction, but again, just make it easier for yourself. Write it as one fraction, that way you can take that cube root of the entire function. So in this case, I have x minus 3 over 2, and then y cubed. The last thing I do is I take that cube root, and I take the cube root of that entire function. So in this case, what I'm left with is y is equal to the cube root of x minus 3 over that value of 2. Alright, so nothing too crazy there. Again, just remembering that you got to start x with y. Once you know that, then it's kind of becomes plug and play. Number 2, you have that g of x is equal to negative 6, and then multiply with x plus 3. All right. Again, first thing we do, write it in terms of y. Next thing, then, we switch those x and y values, so therefore we can undo our entire function. Alright, and now we just need to solve for it. Again, first thing, again, what a lot of you will try to do is try to distribute. Alright, that's adding one extra step to your problem. Don't do that. Alright, this whole thing is being multiplied by that negative 6. So therefore, what you can do is you can just divide by negative 6 on both sides. Okay? And now, what that allows me to do is I just have that y plus 3 on the right side is equal to x over a negative 6. Okay? And if you want to put that negative out in front, you can totally do that as well. It does not really matter. And then the last thing what we have to do is we have to subtract that 3. So when we subtract that 3, all right, what that leaves us with is that x over that negative 6. And then in this case, that minus 3. That minus 3 will not be in our fraction because that is not part of it. Again, it's got to be on the outside, otherwise it changes the entire inverse value or the composition of that function. So then that is equal to, so that is my inverse for that one. All right. So last one. Number 3, f of x is equal to the square root of x minus 2 plus 3, okay? So again, kind of same deal with the cube. In this case, again, get everything over on the outside over to the other side before you switch it. So in this case, I have y is equal to the square root of x minus 2, and then plus 3. Okay, I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides. So I get y minus 3 is equal to the square root of x minus 2. I'm going to now, if we look, we have the entire, oh, excuse me, we have to switch that, x, and then we have y over here. So now we have x minus 3 and then y minus 2. Now the last thing we got to do is to undo that square root. So in this case, we're going to square both sides. Alright, so in this case, we have that x minus 3 squared is equal to y minus 2. Alright, now, when you get here, alright, some of you will try to expand this and you'll have x minus 3 and then multiply with that x minus 3. You can do that, or if you want to, the last thing you can just do is just add 2 to both sides. Alright, in this case we have y is equal to x minus 3 squared plus 2. Okay, again, the reason why we don't have to simplify because we already solved for y, alright? Again, if it asked you to simplify further, then you would do so. But in this case, since the values are, or the variables are all solved for and we have those inverses, we don't need to. Alright, so this was the FN2 Write Equations for the inverses. Hopefully this helped you out a little bit. Again, we'll have our quiz very shortly on this, and hopefully if you have any questions, please let me know.